Hello, everyone. I'm State Representative Emma Mulvaney Stanak. I represent a portion of Burlington, Vermont. Chittenden 6-2 is my district. It's part of the Old North End and the southern portion of the New North End. And today I wanted to offer some insights in policymaking that brings an equitable lens to business development. I serve on the House Commerce and Economic Development Committee. And in my first term, we started to explore economic development and look back at the year of 2020, specifically around how the state had earmarked and moved money to support business recovery in the pandemic and really propping up businesses. But there was a huge gap, largely around how the state intentionally and strategically supported women-owned businesses and BIPOC, global majority owned businesses, because there was a huge gap of knowledge. And in those policy discussions, when we got started, it was clear that the state does not have relationships nor much knowledge on who BIPOC-owned businesses are in the state. They knew a bit more about women-owned businesses, but there was a lack of knowledge. And so when we needed to move money quickly to businesses to help them stabilize during the first part of the pandemic, the state literally didn't know who to contact. So in 2021, when I became a legislator, there was some initial feedback from the BIPOC business community around all the reasons why the state's traditional methods of economic development and business development, which largely contracts out to regional entities ranging from the Small Business Association to the Chamber of Commerce to regional planning commissions, to do all the technical relationship work with businesses. The feedback from the BIPOC community was that doesn't work for us because we are not members on purpose with the Chamber of Commerce in our region. They're very white-led organizations. They're not responsive to nor have done very good outreach and relationship building to the BIPOC business community. And of course, not every business is the same. And not only that, but BIPOC folks are not a monolithic group. What a BIPOC owner in Burlington needs is very different than maybe one in the Northeast Kingdom. So as we dove into it, it became clear that we needed to help, our committee needed to help the Agency of Commerce think through how to gain some more knowledge. So I took the lead because I feel so strongly that the state needs to step forward and not just say, well, maybe they'll find us if we put the grants out. That we needed to be proactive around deepening the knowledge in the agency. So I led the effort to earmark $150,000 to work with a partnership of contractors or one contractor to convene BIPOC or global majority owned business owners in Vermont to provide some critical feedback and information about where the state was missing the mark. So this would be around communication. It would be around the processes for which one could apply for example, these grants or loans. It could be the gaps in technical support and information that is available through the state's partners, just to be really responsive to what BIPOC owners need. And in my own community, here in the Old North End and New North End, I did some business listening this fall, and it's clear that folks need access to capital. That's not something the state has really grappled with, to really address generations of wealth gap. So, BIPOC folks have been through systemic racism. Their wealth has been stolen from them. They don't have the same access generationally that white folks do. So to start a business and to maintain a business and put capital into a business is not easy to do without those accesses to wealth. I worked in partnership with members of my committee. It was actually, I want to say pretty easy, but it was an easy space to take up because no one on my committee was really asking these questions around equity and doing better by this certain segment of our community in the state. And so it was a good partnership effort to bring forward and to partner with the Senate. We added some added elements in there around language access, which is a whole other component, especially for portions of Vermont up in the Chittenden County area, because when folks come to this country, they're entrepreneurs. There's a higher rate actually of new Americans who are entrepreneurs in Vermont than there are for folks who are not new Americans. And it just was interesting to think about, well, how do we make sure we're continuing to be accessible with language, accessible in terms of cultural competency practices with the state or local entities to really engage with businesses. So that passed. We have the contractor out there and working and convening BIPOC businesses right now. They have an interim report due early in the 2022 session to hopefully help us know how to earmark further money and to help stand up whatever organization either needs to exist or entity within state government to support businesses, BIPOC-owned businesses specifically, in getting what they need from the state to be prosperous and have the investments they need to continue to thrive, especially in this pandemic for that matter. So the other piece that I think is a part of this is to remember there's lots of ways that we can think about reparations in terms of economic policy. And so there's a conversation kind of on the big wide scale of things happening in the House General Committee around what does the state do in grappling with acknowledging the enslavement of Black folks in our history and doing reparations to help move meaningful policy forward, to close the racial wage gap and to name the harms done. And one piece of that can be through economic policy. And so I have a bill in that's a first step of this larger conversation around intentionally moving resources, public resources, to BIPOC folks. And it can be done through our state contract system. So the state spends a lot of money, like millions and millions of dollars in private contracts out to whatever business to do anything from, pave the roads and highways to doing technical IT retrofits or new databases for whatever agency. It's millions and millions of dollars of business. And right now the state has no real way of telling us how much of that goes to Vermont-owned BIPOC businesses. They have no way of telling like why there aren't more, responses to RFPs by BIPOC-owned businesses. We actually don't even know much about the labor standards and the information deeper within those folks who are awarded state contracts in any way. If you go to the agency administration's website, it's very cryptic. It's a nice little gobbledygook, simple Excel sheet of a lot of acronyms, which again, does not make for very good policy making and transparency if we want to do better or even ask a critical question of where's our money going. So I use this as one example of a reparations kind of economic policy, because we could intentionally set different standards and expectations for who gets the contracts from the state of Vermont. But we have to be able to ask the right questions. So the bill I had going into 2022 session is a data collection bill around state contracts. So when a bidder submits, they would have to, there's about 8 or 10 different data points, which they will probably provide in one way, shape, or form already, but the state doesn't report on right now. So this would be creating more benchmarks for the state to populate, or not benchmarks, but more information points for the state to populate. So we policymakers could look at trends and information to say, wow, there's really only 1% of state contracts going to Vermont-owned BIPOC businesses, or frankly, and even in a larger conversation, 90% of the state contracts are going to non-Vermont businesses, which opens a whole other important conversation. So while it's a little bit in the weeds and nerdy, I think it's a really important step to get us to a place where we can make better informed policy, for businesses and good economic growth that supports all Vermonters within the coming years, if we can start asking the right questions. So that is what's coming up in 2022.